Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Posey, for 5 minutes.
It's troubling to me that in a recent Senate hearing on childhood vaccinations, it was never mentioned that our government has paid out over $3 billion through a vaccine injury compensation program for children who have been injured by vaccinations. In August 2014, Dr. William Thompson, a senior scientist at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, worked with a whistleblower attorney to provide my office with documents related to a 2004 CDC study that examined the possibility of a relationship between mumps, measles, rubella vaccines, and autism. In a statement released in August 2014, Dr. Thompson stated, "I regret that my co-authors and I omitted statistically significant information in our 2004 article published in the Journal of Pediatrics. We hypothesized that if we found statistically significant effects at either 18 or 36-month thresholds, we would conclude that vaccinating children early with MMR vaccine could lead to autism-like characteristics or features." At the September 5th meeting, we discussed in detail how to code race for both the sample and the birth certificate sample. At the bottom of Table 7, it also shows that for the non-birth certificate sample, the adjusted race effect statistical significance was huge. Sometime soon after the meeting, we decided to exclude reporting any race effects. The co-authors scheduled a meeting to destroy documents related to the study. The remaining 4 co-authors all met and brought a big garbage can into the meeting room and reviewed and went through all the hard copy documents that we had thought we should discard and put them in a huge garbage can. However, because I assumed it was illegal and would violate both FOIA and DOJ requests, I kept hard copies of all documents in my office, and I retained all associated computer files. I believe we intentionally withheld controversial findings from the final draft of the pediatrics paper. End of quote of the doctor.
You know, in the United States, the only vaccine that's still in is for pregnant women. I can say confidently, I do think thimerosal causes tics. So I don't know why they still give it to pregnant women. Like, that's the last person I would give mercury to. Thimerosal from vaccines cause tics. You start a campaign and you just make that your mantra. Do you think a pregnant mother would want to take a vaccine that they knew caused tics? No, absolutely not. I would never give my wife a vaccine that I thought caused tics. I can say tics are 4 times more prevalent in kids with autism. Right. There is biologic plausibility right now to say that thimerosal causes autism-like features.
I wonder if the CDC has conducted or facilitated a study comparing vaccinated children with unvaccinated children yet. Unequivocally, you have studied vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
We have not studied vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
Do you believe anybody who's getting funds from Merck or any of the other pharmaceutical companies should be on advisory panels that are making judgments about pharmaceuticals coming from those companies? Or do you believe that's a conflict of interest?
I think that's a difficult question to answer.
We're talking about why they're putting mercury in vaccinations and why it's never been tested since 1929 when Lilly developed it. Mr. Egan, has thimerosal ever been tested by our health agencies?
It's been only in there were those early tests that you know of that were done by Lilly.
And when was that test done? That was done in 1929. Yes.
And
okay, well, let's follow up on that. In 1929, they tested this on 27 people that were dying of meningitis. All of those people died of meningitis, and so they said there was no correlation between their death and the mercury in the vaccines. That is the only test that's ever been done on thimerosal that I know of. Can you think of any other?
No, in people, no.
Okay,
Except
so-
for accidental exposures, overexposure.
Okay, so we have mercury that's being put into people's bodies in the form of this preservative, and has been since the 30s, and it's never been tested by our health agencies. And yet, you folks come here and you testify that there's no conclusive evidence.
So to protect...
We're taught in medical school that vaccines reduce the incidence rate of smallpox or polio. One of the things that's missing in medical education is that they're not the only thing that play a role as to whether or not diseases come and go. Today, what I'd like to talk about is the rationale of vaccines. There was an article in Pediatrics Journal, which is the Bible journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and this article looked at child mortality rates by age at death in the United States between 1900 and 1998. And you see all the death rates of these diseases actually came down before the DPT was licensed in 1949 and the measles vaccine was introduced in 1963. So what is it that actually helped? State and local health departments implemented public health measures and public education about hygienic practices. Thus, vaccination does not account for the impressive declines in mortality seen in the first half of the century.